This is Learning the Ropes. Learning the Ropes. Presented by Costin and Hammer Productions. Now, on to the show with your host, Josh Hammer.
Welcome, everyone, to Learning the Ropes, a podcast that uses the game of baseball as a framework for understanding a variety of other topics to improve personal development and to understand perspective of those around us. Today, for our second episode, we have quite the treat. We have not one, not two, but three special guests. That may seem more than the average normal podcast, but that's why this is not your average podcast. This is a glorious podcast. With us today, we have Matt Casselli, assistant coach at Sacramento City College. Sac City Trick is the name of the game. He is also he played at Laverne, a Division III. And then we have the founder of New Era Barbering. We have Daniel Contreras in the house. Well, not really. He's practicing social distancing. We're doing this via Zoom. And as well, we have Russell King, who I don't even know how to introduce Russell King because he's just such a boss with dollar signs on the S's. So anyhow, I'm just going to let you, the crowd, figure out where we are going next. But this is Learning the Ropes nonetheless, so we are going to learn together. So let's start it out, boys. Here we go. The first question that I have for you all is, you're all doing different things, different careers. What compelled you, Daniel, to start and delve into New Era Barbering? Like, what inspired that for you to do it?
For me, it was a lack of wanting to be controlled.
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
For better sense of the terms, like I never liked working at a regular job. And cutting hair, I also found that was something of like a handicap for myself, right? Like my time and my energy is equating to my money. And I wanted to really break free of that, especially in like the online world. Building up big social media platforms, raising prices, understanding how to do that in the barber industry. For myself, I really wanted to tap in to see, okay, how can I go ahead and really push something forward where the industry itself is maybe a couple steps behind somewhere like you see the makeup industry or fashion industry, other industries that use artists. That the barber industry is still like a good chunk of time behind, and how can I go ahead and push it forward?
That's awesome. And I think we could all say, all of us here on this particular podcast, to that point, where this like main drive, this vehicle of inspiration, we all kind of clicked when we played summer ball for American Legion. We're bringing up historic times. I don't even think American Legion's a thing anymore.
No, definitely not.
It's probably because we just dominated. We never won a championship, but we had a special team.
yeah. It's all good though.
All right, it is what it is. No. So with us today, we have Matt Casselli, who's an assistant coach at Sac City College. Daniel talked about, I want to do something on my own. And Matt, you've been around the block doing all kinds of different stuff with your career as well. What kind of led you to going to Sacramento City College and deciding, like, I want to stay put at this particular place? I know you played there for a couple of years. Did that have anything to influence it, or what? Why are you there now?
That definitely had something to do with it. Obviously, I was there for a couple of years playing baseball, and then I ventured away from there and eventually came back to Sacramento. Three of us here, one of our coaches was Paul Carmazzi, and as some of you may know, he's the assistant athletic director over there. So he was able to provide me with some work. I'm working in athletics, so I've been doing that for the last 1.5, 2 years. And Derek Sullivan, the head baseball coach over at City College, was nice enough to offer me an opportunity to do some coaching on the side. So that's kind of how I made my way back there. And I've been enjoying every minute of it.
Yeah. Sacramento City College has a really strong baseball tradition that I've always really respected. And I think we all kind of came from some sort of background with baseball. It's like in all of our blood in some shape or form. And I think baseball has actually been I don't know about you guys, but do you feel that baseball has been a vehicle for kind of helping you gain transferable skills to go out into the real world?
I think for
Definitely.
myself, I see more, the more like I progress in my business, the more that I see like how things actually line up. In terms of like with other sports, you know, like football,
Right.
you know, even basketball, they don't play as consecutively. Whereas in baseball, you play damn near every day, right?
Yeah.
You maybe get one day off, depending on like team breaks, especially the professional level. And I think for like business, I mean, you have to wake up every single day. Like it's just like playing every game. Like, okay, cool, we won last night's game. That same score is not going to translate into today's game. We're starting 0-0 again. It's a new game, right? And that's the same thing with life. And the more I get deeper and deeper into business, the more I kind of understand more. I see the correlations between that, whether it be mental preparation, how you can get yourself into ruts, whether it be like a bad hitting streak, your mechanics off, and how to get yourself out of that and back into like your flow and find like, okay, where that sweet spot, where that flow is at. And really know that the mental game not only is in baseball, but also in life as well too.
Right. The one thing that sticks to my mind after what you just shared is the whole, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so oftentimes we can, grind it out in a game, but guess what? Like you said, we got to turn the page and we got to get some tomorrow. And as time progresses, it's about process over outcome. It's about just really trusting what you're doing and putting your 110% into it, giving it your ultimate, attitude, energy, and focus, and then seeing what unfolds from that. And I think not dwelling on the results and just trusting the process will bring a lot more fruitful work and a lot more passion into what you're doing too, a little bit. So now I'm going to throw a curveball in the wrench. So Russell King, he is an Optimist All-Star. Daniel, were you ever an Optimist All-Star? I know I wasn't.
I was, but I had my senior trip, so I couldn't go to. Russell King is the only person on this podcast who has represented and played an Optimist game.
See, Russell,
we are not worthy of being in his presence. So
yeah, we have to allow him some time to speak.
So Russell,
bow down.
That you now have we are bowing down. Currently, all of us are bowing down to the Russell King. So Russell, I'm going to ask you a very basic question that you probably haven't gotten in a long time. What is it about baseball that you like? What do you like about baseball, the game of baseball?
Honestly, I enjoyed the fact that you took effort to actually do it. Like you had to actually practice, you had to work on it. You couldn't just step onto the field and go, I'm good, I can do this. It took practice. Every day you would practice. Like when we were in high school, we had the batting training and all that stuff. I rarely hit when I was in high school, like at all during games, but I was constantly in the batting. But you
mashed. I would never have guessed that you just barely dabbled with it. You just came out. I'd see the two. So quick story about Russell King. He would have an 0-2 count. 0-2 count with like the nastiest, and I mean not good, not mechanical, like the worst swings I've ever seen in my life. But it'd be 0-2, and there'd be a curveball outside, and Russ would just tank a gapper somehow, and it was like a smooth swing, and it looked clean.
Not only would it be a two on strike two, he'd watch two strikes go right over the middle of the plate and then swing it.
And there's fastballs right down the middle.
So Russ, explain to us you had an unorthodox way of playing baseball, but because it was so unorthodox, there's one particular pitch that was super nasty that no one could touch. And I've spoken to many folks about this in the past because it was so historic, is your splurve. It was a mix between a splitter and a curve, and he threw a splitter from a 3/4 quarter angle. So explain to me the invention of the splurve.
Honestly, it was just because I have naturally big hands. Like my fingers can like split apart really well to hold a ball right between my fingers. And It's because I wasn't really good at throwing overhand. So every pitch I threw was sort of sidearm. So when I threw that, the ball just decided to act like a curve and just go at an angle.
Right.
So, I mean, honestly, it was my freshman coach that basically, the pitching coach, he basically just threw it at me and go, just try this, and it worked out pretty well.
Yep. You're talking about Coach Moss from Christian Brothers. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And here's a question for kind of everybody is, Russ, I know for you particularly, you were trying to pursue being a teacher, and I can relate there's a lot of roadblocks that you go through teaching as far as like testing and just going to school. It's like you would think with the teacher shortage that the process might be a little bit easier from time to time. So my question to everybody is what roadblocks have you personally faced with getting to your careers? Especially, Daniel, you have New Era Barbering. Like, what's one roadblock that you have faced so far?
So for myself, I would say it would definitely have to be the self-image or image of self.
Right.
Just due to the fact of like not questioning self if I could achieve this or not. Right. Not questioning of like if I am capable of like not only running a successful business but also growing it over time. And really, for me, even that shift came from when I went from playing baseball to full time becoming a barber. It was like, well, can I really cut hair? Because I'm a baseball player. I don't know if I can do that. So for me, the roadblocks have always been really changing the image, the self-image to fit what I want to go towards instead of what was in my past. And I think that for a lot of people and individuals, especially playing sports or whatever, I think it's the mental side of the game. It's the mental approach that you take with how you view yourself and does it align with what ultimately you want to get towards.
Right. No, thank you. Yeah, I think especially just when we become adults, Matt, you played in college. It's like we all have done different things with the game of baseball. We grew up with this, so it like hits us at home on everything what we do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a lot of roadblocks that we're going to face in this image or, branding. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on with starting a business that I'm only scratching the surface learning. And I agree with what Daniel's sharing with us. I want to bring up another point with Matt, particular with coaching is, you become a player. So how do you fix your image as a coach to like gain that respect level, being a younger coach?
I think a lot of it just has to do with being able to relate to the guys. You need to, depending on your role as a coach, you need to find the in-between where you're not the hard ass and you're not, letting them run all over you. Obviously, if you're like, for me, I'm really way down the line as an assistant coach. So I can't try to be the head coach and, boss these guys around and I can get on them, of
try
course.
To do
but
too
like,
much. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I just need to find, you need to find that happy medium where it's just, okay, hey, if these guys aren't getting their work done, I can get on them. But for me, I really just try to go out there and tell them, look, guys, I'm out here. I'm giving my time to you guys, so I expect you to respect my time, and I'll respect your time. I try to just tell them that we're here to work. If you guys don't want to work, then that's not on you. So I just would appreciate if you guys give your attention, and we're gonna make sure we get some valuable work in here. I think it's just, like I said, going back to just relating with the guys and showing them that you're trying to respect each and every one of them. You're not just out there to, all right, whatever, let's get this stuff over with. They want to be out there and I want to be out there. So it's kind of, you got to get to that mutual agreement.
Yeah. And I'm going to link it back over to Daniel, to your point, Matt, about there's something that really stuck out to me was transparency. And I think, especially when you're starting a business or you're taking any sort of leadership role, there's something about leading by example that really will make a difference in whether you're starting a business, whether your team is successful. Those are the kind of themes in leadership that you need to have in any sort of leadership role. So Daniel, what's like one major characteristic that you have as a leader that you think really separates you from other folks? He has so many he doesn't even know. He's like, I'm gonna say.
No, I want to say the one that's like really the most impactful, especially like with time on here. I think for me, it's intimacy and connection with others.
Right.
And yeah, not intimacy but intimacy like
not a romantic way. Yes.
Well, I mean, we could, but I know
what you mean.
But intimacy in terms of like, look, we connect at like a deeper level.
Yep.
I'm not fearful of going into those conversations. I'm not fearful of like letting you see who I truly am. Because a lot of people do put up those walls in terms of like when they're in those roles of leadership or on social media, where they just want you to see what they want you to see and not seeing the full picture of everything. So for me, it's really the intimacy of whether it be a brand, a business, when I'm working with clients or students, that for me, I believe like really brings out my authenticity and it separates me in that fact.
No, thank you. That's awesome. It's funny. Those weren't like the first two words that come to mind, but the way that you worded it and clearly defined in the intimacy part, I think it's being real. It's being real with people and just showing them. And to Matt's point, to kind of tie it all together, is the passion. I think if people really feel the passion behind what you do, they will want to follow that and keep stepping. I always say forever forward or forward progress. It's like, but I think you do have to model that behavior and show that you're human and that you're not, it's not what media says necessarily. It's like, no, this is you. This is who you are. This is the blueprint that you want to leave behind for other people, maybe to step in one day too. I mean, there's a lot of elements that we could probably delve into for hours. So I'm going to, again, let's throw another curveball. Russell King, you're the best at throwing him. Russ, what other things stick out? You've worked under different kinds of leadership, but what makes you respect a leader?
What makes me respect a leader the most is their understanding, really, because you have to understand when you're like, especially in baseball, it's not a one-man army. You can't beat another team just by yourself. You have to have your teammates with you and their help. Even if you are the leader, you still have to rely on them. You can't just do everything yourself, and you can't just take complete charge. You have to delegate things and everything. If you can be a person that can delegate and make sure that everybody on your team who are working for you and things like that are working together, and that shows that you respect them, and that's really kind of what it is. So
I'm going to bring up a point is something I always coach on is what takes 0%, the saying, like, what takes 0% talent but will earn you 100% respect. I think it's different just to tell, the ball players or, your employees that. I think it's living up to that example. So, one of the things that I strive for is, being on time, just showing my work ethic by just working hard, not just like saying you're going to work hard, but actually working hard. And, keeping a positive attitude and, cleaning up after everyone leaves, things of that magnitude. So, not just it's one thing to be talented, but to separate you from someone else's business or from another team, it's showing up ready to play. And showing up ready to play doesn't mean, I'm going to show up a few minutes late or I'm going to drag in. It's like, no, when it's time to play, you put your cleats on. But it's the same thing in the business world. It's when you're going to meet somebody, you come up, prepared, ready to meet. And I always say proper preparation prevents poor performance. So it's like, I think preparation is key. So the last topic I want to touch on is, how has baseball prepared you for your careers? So let's kick it over to Daniel, Matt, and then Big Russ to kick us home. So Daniel, how has baseball prepared you for your career?
I don't even think for me, I even realized it, but just the everyday ins and outs of the everyday, you got to show up, you got to fucking do your job. And even though, like, even at that time, understanding that, hey, look, sometimes I didn't want to do it, but how we do one thing is how we do everything, right? And even when, like, I think when I started getting more into business, like I said, we were talking prior, like it made me understand, like, how our coaches or whatever coach you had. We always had that one coach, I would say, baseball is life. And it made me really, like, understand it the more I get older in terms of, like, a little bit, like, it's just a daily fucking grind. You're going to be sore. Your shoulder's going to hurt. Your batting stance going to be off. You're going to, like, whiff on pitches. And you still got to show up the next fucking day and do your job. So for me, it's just, it was, that's how it's kind of prepared me, at least, I can kind of go back in my mind when I come up against something of, like, damn, why isn't this shit going my way? And I could rethink of, like, okay, where are times in my life where something like this similarly happened, and how did I get out of it, right? Like, let's say your batting stance is off, or batting, like your swing is off. Okay, you got to go to the cages and work on those small mechanics, figure it down to one thing, then get back into the game, and then you get that one hit. Same thing with business. Why is this thing off? Okay, let me break it down to the single variable, figure out how that works, implement it back again, and then test it again. And kind of like an iterative process that just evolves over time.
Right, and it does. And the funny thing about, like, I know we could talk about batting stances all day, and, like, well, what about if we put our hands here or here? It's just like, it's a constant you evolve constantly. It's always a work in progress. It's never good enough, especially in baseball. It's constantly evolving. So Matt, if there's anyone that knows anything about how baseball is relatable to coaching, but there's more to it than just that. So how has baseball prepared you for coaching? So if you're playing at a D3, what at Laverne, or your experience playing baseball at a D3 or even City before, I know you went through some growing pains, right? So maybe could you share a little bit about your story about not playing at Sac City and then playing at Sac City again?
Yeah, so there was a period there where I wasn't really, I guess you could say, kind of cut. It was kind of just like, hey, you're not going to play. So I was kind of in a stage of my life where I was like, is this what I really want? So I think that was a really good test for me, because it made me realize that, hey, this is what I want to do. So, I had to bust my buns to come back those next 2 years, and I eventually earned a spot on the team and then a starting role, which was pretty cool to see where that hard work paid off. And then, like you said, I transferred out and played a year at Laverne. The one thing our coach preached there was, at a D3, you're not getting drafted, or you're not going on unless you're the real deal. So
unless
it's like, it's really hard. Yeah. It's really hard to get picked up unless, like I said, you're the real deal. His thing that he liked to preach a lot was, hey, I'm not just preparing you, for baseball and to play. I'm preparing you for the rest of your life. I'm trying to teach you life lessons, whether that be you're not always going to succeed, you're going to fail. As Daniel said, you're going to have hardships. So it's about overcoming those hardships and those failures and realizing, hey, every day is a new day, just like every day for baseball is a new day. Kind of going back on what Daniel was saying with life, every day is a new day. You never really know what you're going to expect. So like a baseball metaphor would be, why not treat every day as opening day? So
there you go.
Okay,
that's
yesterday
what I'm looking for right there.
I was 0 for 4 yesterday. Hey, whatever, man. Tomorrow's opening day again. So I'm clean slate, no batting average, So I think it's just preparing yourself. If you prepare yourself, you're gonna eventually have some success. But like I said, you also have to realize that you're not going to be perfect all the time. You're gonna have days where you're not doing well, and you're gonna have days where you're doing well. It's a matter of being able to deal with the days when you're not doing very well in order to get to that, get yourself out of that hole into that next day.
Yep, absolutely. Opening day. So Russ, what's an opening day looking like for you? No, we'll just say sorry, what'd you say, Russ?
It's the usual grinds, basically.
Right. And I know, so maybe you could enlighten the audience with what you're doing nowadays, Russ.
Well, right now I'm working as a laborer for an electrical company. And, to do that, which is part of the essential group right now, but
absolutely,
despite I'm stuck at home right now. But basically, it is like baseball, and it's just like every other day that you go to school and like that. You learn independence. You learn to just keep on moving. Like, for example, if you mess up in the real world, which is work, like, for example, if I don't do the wiring correctly for something, it can cause a fire. It will cause a fire. And it's like, you can't just go, oh, I can't tighten this enough, or I don't know what I'm doing. You can't just walk off and be like that. I can't do it. It's just, you have to basically do it, do it as best you can. And if you can't do it, figure out how to do it and basically make sure you don't mess up. It's a constant learning experience.
There you have it. Yep. And that's why it's learning the ropes. This is a constant learning experience from all of us. And every name on the back of each jersey has a different story. And this is just a glimpse of some of our stories. So hopefully those tuning in, you were able to get something out of this podcast. So if you like what you heard and you'd like to support us, you can follow us at Cost and Hammer on Instagram, Twitter, and you can even listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So be sure to check out all of our social media platforms. And if you're watching this on a YouTube platform, be sure to like and subscribe and throw on those notifications so you know exactly when the next Cost and Hammer Productions video drops. So with that being said, we really appreciate your time. From myself, Daniel Contreras, Matt Casselli, Bossy Russ with the dollar signs on the S's, we say this has been a wrap to the second edition of Learning the Ropes. Take care, y'all. Bye.
See y'all.
Hey, thank you for checking out our YouTube channel. Be sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you know exactly when the next Costin and Hammer Productions video drops. Be sure to follow us all things social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, in the links below. We appreciate your support. We'll see you next time.